Hello and welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, a podcast featuring small school strength coaches making the big time where they're at. I am your host, Gage Rozier. I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey guys, this week I'm joined by Coach Zach Mathers at the University of Sioux Falls in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. When I first started this podcast, I knew that he was one of the first guys I wanted to have on. Just number one, because he's a great guy. I had a chance to meet him a couple different times at some conferences up in South Dakota, and really impressed and really appreciate how open he is, and just a great guy. And number two, he's in such a unique role. He is the head strength coach as well as the head athletic trainer there at Sioux Falls. And for doing that at a Division II university is got to be super hard. And I wanted to get him on here and talk to him a little bit about how he does that. And of course, we dive into that in this episode, and we talk about a lot of other great stuff as well. And I really appreciate him coming on. I know you'll love it, enjoy the show. His contact info is in the show notes, so please reach out to him if you have questions. We've been getting a lot of great feedback from you guys about the podcast, and please continue to share, leave a comment, let us know how we're doing. If there's someone you want to have on to hear from, or if there are questions that we don't kind of have in our question bank that you would like to have answers on, please shoot us those, and we can get them out there. So hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for tuning in. And here's Coach Zach Mathers. All right, Coach Mathers, I really appreciate you coming on a Big Time Strength podcast with us. Let's get going and have you explain to us kind of your journey through strength conditioning and what you're doing there at Sioux Falls.
Great. Well, thank you for having me, and appreciate your patience and working with me to get me on here. We've been going through some staff hiring and things like that, so I appreciate you. But I'm in my 9th year right now at the University of Sioux Falls. Love it here. I have a unique role, which I think we're going to talk about later. I serve as both our head athletic trainer and our head strength conditioning coach. Prior to this, I worked in Sioux City, Iowa, for a company called the Center for Neurosciences, Orthopedics, and Spine. As a physician-owned multi-specialty clinic. I kind of got hired on there as an athletic trainer in 2000. To kind of show my age a little bit here, but got hired on as an athletic trainer in 2000. But had a lot of passion for the strength conditioning side of it, and that piece of the exercise science. I played football and ran track in college at a small school in Iowa called Buena Vista University. It's a Division III school. Kind of fell in love with the weight room there, probably a little later than some people did, but fell in love with it, and fell in love with the training and the speed and agility work and the lifting and how that stuff all tied together. After a couple of years at CNOS, we had always been doing some summer programs. The summer programs were designed just to keep us athletic trainers busy during the year, and we wanted to kind of put more of an emphasis on it, and I volunteered to be a person that could maybe take that to the next level. At the time I took it over, I think we had around 75 to 100 kids. They were doing summer programs with us, and when I left in the summer of 2010, I think we had between 3,000 and 4,000 kids signed up from all over Sioux City. At that point in time, I was pretty proud of that, growing that fast. But at that point in time, I was kind of ready for something new. I had some friends that were at the University of Sioux Falls. I knew they were making the transition to Division II. Got my foot in the door a little bit with them, explained my situation and what I could do and my certifications. At that time, we were still NAI. Didn't have a ton of financial support to hire 2 separate positions to move forward. I said I could do both for a while. Got the position, and here 9 years later, I'm still doing the same thing. So that's kind of my journey. It's a pretty unconventional route, I guess, as far as some. There's no internship or graduate assistantship. Most of the stuff I just learned from going out and talking to people and going to clinics and reading and getting out and going. You know, guys like Nate Moe at South Dakota State was huge for getting me started. Chris Doyle at the University of Iowa was very open to me and let me come down and visit a couple times, and responded to my emails. Probably annoyed the crap out of him, but he did an outstanding job responding. Vern Gambetta and Mike Boyle's information they put out, some clinics they went to, Ron McKeefery, guys like those guys were all extremely open to me and helped me out a ton to get started and get learning stuff. And that's kind of how I learned. So it's a pretty unconventional route, but I liked my route. It was interesting. There was a lot of hard work and a lot of learning on my own, but kind of makes you be very proactive. When you don't know something, you got to go find it out pretty quickly on your own. But that kind of brings us to where we're at today. And like I said, this is my starting my 9th summer here at the University of Sioux Falls.
That's awesome, and from your experience, you can tell you've made yourself very versatile. Obviously, you have a lot of different stuff going on there, and you're able to get your foot in the door and make something happen. It's pretty impressive. And when we reached out to you, when I made this podcast, I knew you were one of the first guys I wanted to have on because I knew what such of a unique role you're in there, and I know you do a great job on both sides of it. So let's get into that. Like, explain a little bit about how you balance between being the head athletic trainer and strength coach. And there's got to be a lot of organizing and relying on your staff with that, I'm sure. But let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like we kind of talked about off the podcast here before we got started. It is a very unique role. I'm not sure how many people do it. I'm not sure how many people are out there that do it. I think it certainly can be viewed as something that's too much, and the professions are too different. And there's probably a lot of truth to that. In our situation, I try to look at the positivity of it. I think the sports medicine versus strength conditioning world, there's a lot of conflict at some universities, and I think I prefer to look at the positive side that we don't have that. I can't really fight with myself too much, I guess, but I think that's the positive side of it. I think everybody's immediately on the same page. I know some schools have figured that out. I know there's some high performance training models out there that some schools do really well. I was talking to Dominic Stadzinski, who's a former USF graduate down in Ole Miss, kind of talked to me about their model a little bit, and they got a model that works really well. But for us, this works really well. I oversee both departments. I make sure that communication is paramount in that. And for me, like you said, the two things I think you said hit the nail on the head. It's great staffing, and it's organization of what you got to be doing. I try to hire great people for athletic training, and people that are driven, that are invested in our university and in our athletics program, and that can go out and do it where I don't have to micromanage them. I'm kind of a micromanager by nature. That's one of my weaknesses that I'm really trying to step back from. So, but hiring good people that are driven, that are smart, that can come out and do their job without having to have me hold their hand all day. And we've done a really good job of that, getting those people in here. And organization also has never always been my strong suit either. So that's been something I've had to really work hard on to make sure that we got people in the right places. I got the stuff I need to have done ahead of time. I'm probably now, I've come full circle. I'm probably an over planner, but I feel that if I plan ahead even better, when something happens, I'm more prepared to call an audible and make something happen that changes really quickly. So, again, it's staffing, it's organization, it's making sure you have proper communication. Everybody knows what the expectations are. Everybody knows what they need to be doing. We're really fortunate to partner with Avera, which is a local hospital here in town. They have outstanding physicians, and our three team physicians, are awesome. And they are super invested in what we're doing. Our physical therapists that we work with are very invested in what they're doing, and their administration there is hugely invested in the University of Sioux Falls. So that stuff makes it pretty easy because you got good people to work with every day that you can trust to go do their job.
Yeah, so on the day-to-day, are you covering any type of practice like an athletic trainer most that do? Or, I know you're spending most of your time in the weight room, strength conditioning side, but you just let your staff handle all of sport coverage and all that?
For the most part, yeah. It certainly has been a long time since I've taped an ankle. I think our athletes are probably very thankful for that. I have very minimal sports coverage. Most of my role as athletic trainer is administrative.
Okay.
Probably serve, if we get in a pinch and it's a really busy practice day and I'll stay away from ankles. I can still do wrists and wound coverage pretty well, but ankles, I don't know how good I am anymore. But, I'll help with a little bit of practice prep on occasion if it's really busy. With football, we have one person assigned to football, and it's right outside our weight room area, so I can bounce out there and help out with some just secondary football coverage. At the same time, typically I'm doing some return to play protocols and things like that with some injured athletes anyway, so it works out well. But also I really try to be a resource for them. I try to take some of the stuff off them that's not very fun, the budget, the insurance, and some of the positions that, the issues that come up with positions. I help them, bounce ideas off me, talk about injuries, talk about rehab plans, just kind of a resource for them to do it and really support them as best I can to do their job. So my athletic, I think our athletes, I guess I would say, probably view me as a strength conditioning coach more than anything, although they know my role as an athletic trainer is there. But as far as practice coverage goes, it's very minimal, just helping out where is needed. But mostly it's just being a support system for them so they can go do their job to the best of their ability and just focus on our kids and not have to focus on all the other administrative stuff that's probably not as fun.
That's a really cool setup. I know talking to our athletic trainers, they hate doing all the insurance stuff and all that. So I'm sure your staff loves being able to do mostly what they signed up for, which is I'm sure is the rehabs and the coverage and all that. So that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool setup you guys got going on. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so before we got recording, we talked about kind of how the summer's going and stuff. And I know one of the big issues a lot of small school coaches have, especially with their fall sports, is summer attendance in the weight room. You send guys home, you have no idea what shape they're in coming back, and we're in camp and expected to play a game 3 weeks later. And you told me you got 200 athletes on campus right now, and that's grown over your years there. So let's talk about one, how you structure your summer, and how have you grown the importance of your summer and getting athletes to stay on campus?
Sure. I'll kind of start with kind of how we've got to where we're at. I'm pretty proud of that, and I'm pretty proud of the buy-in of our athletes that do stick around in the summer and trust us to train them and get them prepared for what's coming up. Division II, everything in the summer is voluntary, of course. We still have monitoring versus coaching rules in some sports, and so it's kind of crazy there, but we've kind of stressed the importance of it over the years. Getting coaches bought into it was an educational process. Getting kids was another educational process, and then we wanted to hear it from different angles, of course. But when I started here in June of 2010, we had somewhere between 40 and 50 football-only athletes that were here in the summer, which is still pretty darn good for, at that time, an NAI football program. And kind of just from that point in time, just started attacking it. We don't wait until April or May to start talking about it. We're talking about it, in December and January and February. So we're getting it in front of them, reminding them to get a job, taking that excuse off the board for them. I can't find a job. Well, have you been looking? We've talked about this in January. We've been here long enough, and we're really fortunate to be in a city like Sioux Falls where there are a lot of opportunities for our athletes to work at in the summer. And we're also very fortunate that we have really good kids here, and our athletes are great people and very driven. So when they do go work somewhere, they do an outstanding job, and then that employer calls me up the next year and says, hey, this person did an awesome job. Do you have any other people that would want to come over and work for us? And so we've kind of developed a little bit of a job board, and we have some places that'll hire 3, 4, 5 kids almost every summer because he knows they're good kids and they know they're going to work really hard. So that's been one thing we've done to help. Our housing and our campus resources have been awesome. They've opened up some dorms for them to live in that are, they're still paying for them, but it's not as much as maybe an apartment would be. We do not offer scholarships in the summer. I know some Division IIs are getting into that where they'll offer scholarships for food and housing and classes in the summer. We do not offer that. So I think that even speaks more to our athletes, how disciplined and dedicated they are to get better to get there. So it's not rocket science, I guess. For me, it's just been, we've done a couple simple things like education, helping them find jobs, working on the housing piece of it, and then talking about it. I think, like you said, you're expecting these fall sport athletes to come in. Football gets 3 weeks, but I think volleyball doesn't even barely get 2. And I think soccer may even get less than that. So we're expecting these athletes to come in and be ready to go based on a program that you send them over the summer, and there's not really any accountability on it except for personal accountability. And I think most athletes or most people are probably going to find that only about 50% of their athletes are doing about 50% of what they're supposed to be doing. And, so it's a huge crapshoot when they get back. And, as far as structure goes, the other thing this is where it gets kind of hairy is because these kids are here in the summer, they have to work. And so a lot of our stuff is pretty early in the morning. We have groups and we open it up at any time they want to go. But some of our groups want to start as early as 5:30. We had a soccer group the other day. One of one of their players had to work, and they asked if they'd come in at 5 so they can get it knocked out so they could work out as a team together. And so we're pretty open with that. We try to structure it as best we can. We do have a good-sized weight room right now that allows us to get a lot of people through at the same time, and we do have some supervision. Now we just hired a new full-time assistant coach and a couple other people from the community. They're going to serve as part-time assistant coach, and we got a couple interns, and we're able to supervise a large amount of people at the same time and give them quality coaching or monitoring, I guess, depending on what the sport is. But we're, like I told you, kind of off podcast, between the hours of 5 a.m. and 9 or 9:30 a.m. It is wild in there. It's definitely organized chaos as far as how we do it. But again, it comes back to organization and planning and where people are going to be at this time. Well, who can we move around to here and there and everywhere and get them so they can get a quality workout in so they want to keep coming back. Because I think that's the other important thing. We got to continue to coach them because we don't want them to just come in and think they're working out on their own. We want to give them time. We want to give them some love. And we want to develop or, engage with them and develop those relationships so they want to keep coming back for us. So that's a big piece of what we're trying to do as well. But like I said, nothing really rocket science or nothing really out of the ordinary. It's just been a consistent approach and really trying to hammer on doing those little things that it takes to get kids to commit and working on those things every single day.
Yeah, and with you probably know, so with being on the athletic training side too, have you seen, as you got more and more athletes to stay over the summer, have you seen your injuries kind of in camp? Our injuries those first few days of camp seem like they're ridiculous. I mean, they're just a lot of guys coming back. They're just not used to the load and everything, and obviously you're going to still have that. But have they gotten better the more and more you've had athletes stay on campus?
They have. We track that, and that's another positive about being in both roles. I have access to all that information. I can look that up and check injury trends, and our athletic training staff's really bought into that too. So we talk about that a lot, but it was a pretty consistent drop over the first 5-6 years we've been here of that camp. It's kind of leveled out a little bit now, but our soft tissue injuries, you're always going to have something, especially, football and soccer. Soccer, they play a little bit, but you don't kick as much as you do in those first few days, and in football, you can't mimic the contact and the collisions that you have. Volleyball, you can't mimic the number of swings you're going to take. So we still have a little bit, but it's plateaued out. Our soft tissue injuries have gone significantly down. Our football coach was here previously as a defensive coordinator, left for 4 years, and came back and took over as head coach. And he was extremely excited last year because it was about a fifth of the number of injuries that he had at his previous school compared to what we had this last fall camp. So it has been a big part of it because we can we can coach those guys, especially our fall sports. We can coach them up and really push them in the way they need to be pushed so that when we get to fall camp, they're not getting banged up and hurt.
Yeah, that's got to be another tool you can use to try to get that buy-in for summer. Like, hey, no one wants to be injured. Not promising that you're not going to be by sticking around, but it's certainly going to help. So that's awesome. And let's talk a little about your facility there. I was able to attend the NSCA state clinic you guys hosted there and did a great job. And I love your guys' facility. Is that a new facility? Were you a part of putting that together? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have an amazing facility. I'm super proud of it. I think it's one of the biggest in Division II as far as square footage. We have a kind of a half basketball size sport court. We have about 30 by 30 yards of turf, and then kind of two separate weight room areas. If we have a huge group that comes in, we can certainly house. I think I figured it out one day. We can probably safely and efficiently get about 100 people through at one time if we needed to. But really, it kind of serves as two separate weight rooms inside of one. So if we have a softball group on one side and a football group on the other side, they can work efficiently and have whatever they need. I was a part of designing the current upgrade of the facilities, but as far as the building's concerned, the building was built by Sanford, which is another local hospital in town. They used it kind of as their small group training facility. They sold that to us. It's right on our property, right outside of our right on our athletic complex. And they built their new power center, which is incredible as well. We bought that probably in 2012 or 2013. At the time, we had 6 racks, 6 bars, 1 set of dumbbells. That's what we had in there for probably 4 years. And then slowly but surely have worked on fundraising and worked with boosters and been really efficient with how we've spent money that we've been allocated. We don't have a budget, so I have to be really creative with how we do things, and but just talk to a lot of people, showing them what we've done. I think our results in the field have helped us certainly in all of our sports, and have been able to really upgrade it and get what we have now, which I think is incredible. We have 12 racks, which I know isn't as much as some people have, but it really works well for the group size that I like to have in there. We have 2 sets of dumbbells, 6 power blocks, multiple bars, stations. And again, with all that space in there, you can really move people around and do different things. I like moving throughout a workout and not as necessarily being as stationary at a platform the whole time, but I like getting them out on the turf and doing things, walking lunges and get ups and whatever else we need to get done in there. So our facility is pretty nice. I'm pretty proud of it, especially where we came from. When I first got here, we were shoved in our Stewart Center, which is pretty small, in a small weight room with pretty much horse mats for flooring, maybe a little better than that. We had 4 racks, 4 platforms, 3 benches, and about a half a set of dumbbells, and about 450 athletes. So from there in 2010 to where we are now, feel pretty fortunate to be able to have what we have.
Yeah, it's beautiful facility. Do you mind elaborating maybe a little bit on the type of fundraising stuff you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, we don't do much. I mean, we do the T-shirt sales. We're going to do some mixer sales this year. I got that idea from Joe Quinlan, who I know you're close to, and a little shout out to Joe. I think everybody on this podcast has mentioned Joe Quinlan, so I better give him my shout out. The Joe Quinlan podcast here, but of course he's a good friend, but he does an outstanding job down there at Northwest Missouri. But got the idea from him to sell the shaker bottles, and then if they buy a shaker bottle, they can fill it completely up with chocolate milk, so you get a little extra chocolate milk every day. But a lot of it, T-shirt sales. We're gonna do some shaker sales. I've worked really hard with our marketing departments to find local companies that are maybe willing to do some marketing trade out to get some things that are really beneficial for both of us at a really reduced rate on pricing, things like our chocolate milk and our bread. And we have a partnership with some local companies that help us out a ton. And then other than that, it's been talking to people, and it's been trying to educate boosters and educate our administration on what we need and the importance of it and the safety of it, and the return that you can get from the strength conditioning program. And I think that hasn't gone unnoticed. We've been very fortunate. We've had a couple boosters have really stepped up in the last couple of years, but it's, like I said, I don't know if I'm very cutting edge with anything, but I just try to take the tried and true methods of communication and developing relationships and showing results and do that consistently over time until we finally get what we need. I don't think you're never satisfied with what you have, but I'm pretty pumped about what we do have now. We work with Powerlift. Mike Richardson at Powerlift is a good friend of mine. He said, you might have to be a case study for the longest time somebody's ever pushed for this weight room and finally got it, because it took us about 6-7 years to get what we finally got. And him and I both celebrated pretty hard when we finally got our proposal through and our bids to go through, because both of us had worked really hard on that to get it there, and I appreciate his help on those as well.
Yeah, that's cool, and that's something I need to be better about, is working with the marketing department and knowing because we're in a great area too in Kansas City. There's got to be a lot of places out there who want to help and be willing to trade off just straight money donation for product or whatever it might be. So that's cool. Just being creative with it. I think it's really cool. And again, your facility is amazing. So let's transition maybe to some training. What's your training philosophy there?
As far as like a mission statement or more philosophy?
Just how do you want to train your athletes? I mean, what do you really bank on? What do you think is important as far as, it might be exercise selection or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I guess for us is the important thing that I always try to stress to our staff and to myself is that we're not training weightlifters. We're training athletes. Nobody's coming here to hang out with me all day. They're coming here to play football and basketball and track and soccer and whatever else. So I think it's really important for me that we're training things that are going to be they're going to help them on the field. And so just trying to make sure that we're keeping that in mind. We're going to work hard. We're going to push our athletes. We try to talk about improve, shield, and educate every single day. We're improving them as an athlete and getting them physical preparation for the things they're going to be asked to do on the field. we're going to try to reduce the risk of injury as much as we possibly can. It's not, you can't prevent injury, but if we can reduce that risk, it's really important for us. And then educate them on how to take care of their body on the other 22 hours of the day they're not at practice or with us, so they can maximize their results. But, exercise selection, I'm a big believer in the tier system. I love Joe Ken's stuff, and he's incredible with the things that he does and how he puts things. He takes one of the simple things you can think of and makes you feel really dumb because he can put it so eloquently and how he does things, So I love his stuff, and I really believe in the tier system and how that works to develop people athletically. And so we use the tier system in almost everything that we do. Olympic stuff, I'm not the greatest Olympic lifting coach. We can do it effectively, but we're going to keep that to be very explosive and form-based and try to keep them from doing it the wrong way, do it as best we can and do it the right way. But a lot of things we're going to do are just to be explosive. We're going to move, going back to Dan John's stuff, push, pull, carry, squat, and hinge, getting those things in really develop strong athletes. And strength is the basis for everything we do. And if we got good, strong athletes, we're going to be able to do a lot more stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like the tier system as well. And how do you structure speed and agility and conditioning and all that? So in the tier system, you got your 3 days.
Yep.
In the perfect world, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or however it might be. I struggle sometimes on how to throw in our agility work and conditioning with that. So how do you structure that?
If we're on a true tier system, which is the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I don't know if that's the true tier system, but that's kind of what he talks about in most of his stuff.
Sure.
We'll do our speed and agility stuff prior to our Monday and Friday lifts.
Okay.
Tuesday and Thursday are a little more conditioning based. Wednesday is just a lift. We do our squats on Wednesdays in the middle of the week. Tuesday's run is a little conditioning based. I just try to keep that where it's a little lower intensity, not much stopping and going, because I still think the squats in the weight room on Wednesdays needs to be a priority. Thursday we get after a little bit more. I know there's probably a little bit of soreness and stiffness from the squats, but at some point it's not a perfect world. We're dealing with athletes and college schedules and NCAA rules. So Thursday we get after the conditioning a little more. Then Friday we'll come back with a little more speed, change direction, and then follow that up with a lift. That's how we structure it. I mean, there's certainly things that change based on what you do week to week, exercise selections and things like that, or drill selections that you're doing within your speed and agility training. But that's how I set it up, at least for our summers. During the school year, it's a little different. Conditioning's not as huge of a focus, so we're able to do a couple different things with that. But it's really tough for me. I mean, as much as I'd like to do it, I think in a perfect world, you do some speed training in the morning, you come back in the afternoon and lift. Our athletes have to drive about 10, 12 minutes one way out to our facility. I don't want to bring them out twice a day. So we try to combine it into one and knock it all out and just be really careful with how we're programming and how we're assigning intensities and loads to everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's a million different ways you can do it. And that's similar to what I'm doing now, and I'm liking it. It's been working. It's been good this summer. So appreciate you sharing that. Let's
yeah.
How about some of your favorite professional development resources? What are you diving into?
I kind of do a little bit of everything. I'm a podcast right now, or probably one of my number one ways, but I do like to read. Big on just the major books that almost everybody has on their list. I'm kind of going through one of Bompa's books right now on periodization, and then also it just blanked from my mind. I think it's I'll think of it eventually. But High Performance Training for Sports is what it's called. It's kind of got the collection of different topics and articles by multiple authors. That one I think is an incredible book. So kind of plugging through those two right now. I think Twitter, unfortunately, I'm not a huge social media guy, but I think Twitter's a great resource because of all the articles and links and things you can find on there. So using it that way. And then I'm not a huge journal guy. I will read some journals and things like that, but I'm probably not very good at that. I probably digest a little easier in book and quick article and then podcast form. But probably podcast is my number one right now, and just listen to what other people are doing, then following up any questions I have with some research on my own on how they're getting to what they're getting to.
Awesome. What are you really looking forward to on learning a little more specifically this next year? Or what's your vision for your department and what you're trying to do this next few years at Sioux Falls?
Yeah, and I think one thing that I really like is kind of the periodization techniques and how people are doing that. I think you look at some of the stuff Cal Deep is doing, and I can barely follow along with that. I don't think I need to get that intricate because he's so incredibly smart. I don't think I can get that intricate, but just kind of looking through, some different periodization models and how they structure things, and looking at a lot of Bompa stuff, and again, Joe Kinn's stuff, people like that, just kind of looking at how they're structuring things and learning more about that. Probably my biggest project though in the next year is really looking at our injured athletes' return to play protocols. And I talked about having a great staff and a great team for our sports medicine and our strength conditioning, but the problem is that athletic training's in one room, strength conditioning's in another room, and it's a separate building. Our physicians are in one building, our PTs are in a different building. So we got 4 really integral parts of that return to play protocol in 4 separate buildings. And just trying to find a way to streamline that process to make sure that everybody's thinking the same way when they're not under the same roof. And just trying to find ways to really use everybody's expertise to get what's best for that athlete and get them back safely and effectively in a time frame that works best for everybody. And then involving the sport coach as well in that process. And that's probably honestly my number one project right now is continuing to refine that. We've taken some steps to get better at that, and I like our progress on it, but I still want to continue to get that better and better and use people's expertise to really to get that. So it's such a efficient process, and that's probably my biggest thing that I'm looking for in this next year.
That is tough. That's something I definitely need to get better at too. Is getting that return to play and that communication with our athletic training staff much more streamlined, like you said. So I might have to pick your brain on that, at another time and see what you got some ideas on that, because that is definitely crucial and it's something we can definitely get better at here at Williamsville College.
Absolutely.
All right, let's finish up here. I know I got a big meeting for you to get to, and let's finish up with our finisher. 5 quick questions to wrap things up.
Okay.
All right, so what's your favorite office snack?
Well, I think at any given time I'm going to have granola bars, trail mix, and beef jerky in there. So that's probably it. I did hear one of your guys in the last couple of weeks I listened to me recommend those Aussie bites. So those are growing on my list a little bit. I went out and bought those. I've been trying those. Those are kind of climbing my list of regulars on my snack list.
Nice. I think that was Coach Niederman. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why we're doing this little stuff like that, where it could game changer. Just a little snacks. Yep. That's good. All right. Favorite caffeine source?
Oh, well, I'm not real big on caffeine. I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm not a pop drinker. I did find, just in case, those long days where I have 2 young kids, so sleep isn't always consistent for me right now. But if it's a long day and I'm kind of dragging a little bit, I found these little things called Strike Force Energy, kind of a veteran-owned company that it's just you mix it in your water, and it tastes awesome and kind of gives you a little pick-me-up. It's caffeine and some vitamins and stuff like that in there, but I've kind of liked those lately. I don't do it very often, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, but if I need a little pick-me-up, that's kind of been my go-to.
I'm looking into that, and you're a much bigger man than I am, because I have a 1-year-old, and I got caffeine all day. I got a problem. But what's your favorite workout playlist?
Ooh, for me or for our athletes?
Let's go with you.
For me, I keep it pretty simple. I don't need a bunch of headbanging and stuff. I hear that all day with our athletes, so I almost calm down a little bit. I honestly probably 9 times out of 10 right now I listen to a podcast while I work out. But if I'm not, I'm probably either going with, if we're looking at Pandora stations, Journey radio, Zach Brown Band radio, or maybe some Willie Nelson radio.
Awesome.
One of those 3.
Yeah. All right, 15 minutes to train. What are you doing? And let's keep this with you too, not your athletes.
Okay. Well, I'm old, so probably stretching and rolling is probably my most important 15 minutes. But if I were to train, it's probably going to be some type of circuit quick. If I only got 15 minutes, there'll probably be some carries or sled pushes, some med ball throws, some shoulder work, some pushing and pulling, and get a couple hinges in there. But just trying to get something in there, a circuit style. And I've kind of passed my prime of going super, super heavy on anything. So just kind of going that medium resistance and working through stuff as quickly as I can and then get back to whatever I need to get doing.
Nice. I like it. All right, last one. A small school strength coach who deserves a shout out.
I've been thinking about this one because I always hear these questions, but you always forget. You always feel bad because you're going to forget somebody. But I think the top few that come to my mind, Mike Silbernagel at the University of Mary does an awesome job. Kevin Cronin at Colorado College. I know they might be a little bigger. I think they're Division I in a couple sports, but I know he's kind of small staff at a smaller school there. Aaron Siekmann at Black Hill State, Dylan Fritz at Northern, Aaron Jung at Morningside, Rich White maybe at Concordia St. Paul. A lot of guys in our conference, I think, do an awesome job. Travis Anderson at Moorhead, Grant Darnell at Wayne State. That's kind of our conference list, but that's who I talk to a lot of times, and those guys I knew do an outstanding job. And it's kind of fun to get together at games and at conferences. We were fortunate enough to have most of our conference at our regional clinic, and we got to talking about what we're doing. I think those guys do an outstanding job. But that's kind of my list. But probably the two that I know the best would be Kevin Cronin at Colorado College, and then Mike Silbernagel at the University of Mary. Those are the two that I know the best. But I know these other guys that are kind of local that do an outstanding job as well.
Perfect. I'll definitely look into those guys. And will you guys be hosting the NSCA state clinic again next year? I mean, do you plan?
We will.
Okay. All right.
Yep, we will, and that'll be March. It's like March 15th and 16th next year in Sioux Falls, right at our bubble in our weight room there.
Well, I wanted to mention that because I loved going there last year, and if our listeners want to go up and check out your facility and everything, I highly encourage them to do so. It was a awesome conference last year, or clinic, or whatever you want to call it, and it was great. So, all right, I got your contact info that I will put up on the show notes. Is there a particular way, if people have questions, do you prefer email or anything in particular if they want to get hold of you?
I'm great with anything.
Okay.
I'm probably not awesome at like Twitter direct messages, so email or give me a call or whatever's easiest for you. I'm good with anything. I'm pretty open with anything we do, and happy to talk shop with anybody or answer any questions about what we do, and probably learn something myself out of the process. So anything they want to get a hold of me on is great.
Awesome. Well, Coach Mathers, I really appreciate it. And this is awesome. And good luck the rest of the summer, and good luck this fall.
Appreciate it, Coach.